Human behavior is a paradox. On the surface, it looks deliberate, rational, and intentional. People like to believe that their choices are guided by logic, that their decisions are the product of careful thought and reason. Yet beneath this polished appearance lies a far more complicated truth. What drives us is not logic, but an intricate blend of instincts, emotions, past experiences, and subconscious patterns that operate outside of awareness. We are, in many ways, predictably irrational, responding to hidden forces we barely recognize. To truly understand people, you must first acknowledge that behavior is rarely about reason. It is about survival, emotion, and perception. At the foundation of our actions rests the ancient architecture of the human brain. Deep inside, the limbic system, often called the emotional brain, governs reactions long before conscious thought arises. This system evolved millions of years ago to keep us alive. It scans constantly for danger, calculates risk, and responds to threats with lightning speed. Hunger, fear, sexual drive, and the need for safety all stem from this primal engine. When survival instincts take charge, reason is left behind. The body moves, the voice changes, the decisions are made, and only later does the conscious mind construct a story to explain what already happened. This is why so often people say, "I don't know why I did it, it just felt right." That feeling was the limbic brain pulling the strings. Layered over this primal base are emotions that dominate human choices. People rarely act based on facts alone. A fact may carry weight, but it is emotion that tips the scale. Anger pushes someone to confront when reason would suggest retreat. Fear keeps someone stuck when logic insists they should move. Love inspires sacrifice that numbers cannot justify. Even in business, politics, or negotiation, the heart silently leads, and the mind obediently follows. Logic does not shape the outcome, it rationalizes it afterward. In this sense, emotion is not the enemy of reason, but the commander of it. Then there is the powerful influence of culture and society. From the moment we are born, invisible hands shape the boundaries of what we believe, how we behave, and how we interpret the world. Family values, religious teachings, social norms, and peer influence act as guide rails. They do not shout instructions. Instead, they whisper expectations into the subconscious. A person may think they are making an independent decision, but more often than not, they are following a path carved by culture long before the moment of choice arrived. This invisible programming creates conformity, but it also provides identity, a sense of belonging, and a framework for decision-making. Beneath all of this lies the human craving for certainty. People yearn for predictability, for a world where outcomes feel secure and stable. Chaos creates discomfort, and in moments of uncertainty, individuals cling desperately to routines, beliefs, or even authority figures who offer the illusion of control. This explains why people fall into the arms of charismatic leaders, trust manipulative influencers, or repeat self-destructive habits. The brain prefers the safety of the familiar, even if the familiar is harmful, over the terror of the unknown. Understanding this need for certainty is essential because once you see it, you recognize how often people trade freedom for stability, autonomy for reassurance. Another truth about human behavior is that perception matters more than reality. People do not respond to the world as it truly is. They respond to the world as they perceive it. Each perception is filtered through biases, memories, and emotional states. Two individuals can witness the same event and walk away with entirely different impressions. One sees opportunity, another sees danger. One feels inspired, another feels defeated. The event did not change, the interpretation did. This filtering system is not a flaw, but a function. The brain cannot process every detail of reality, so it edits, distorts, and reshapes the world to fit into mental frameworks already in place. Once you recognize that perception governs reality, you begin to see why persuasion works not by changing facts, but by altering filters. Science has revealed something even more astonishing. Free will itself may not be as free as we imagine. Neuroscience experiments show that the brain makes many decisions milliseconds before we become conscious of them. By the time you choose, the choice may already have been made. This does not mean we are robots without agency, but it does mean that much of what we call willpower is simply the conscious mind justifying the subconscious. Habits, phobias, relationship choices, and even the foods we crave often spring from deep subconscious programming rather than deliberate intention. In fact, studies suggest that around 95% of behavior originates not in conscious thought, but in subconscious processes formed through childhood conditioning, trauma, and repeated patterns of reinforcement. If subconscious forces guide so much of behavior, then the secret to understanding others is not to ask what they think, but to discover what they fear, what they crave, and what they have been conditioned to believe. Influence begins at the emotional and subconscious level, never at the rational level. This is why advertisements rely on symbols, images, and feelings rather than facts and figures. It is why skilled negotiators focus on rapport and trust before presenting logical arguments. The subconscious is the true commander, and the conscious mind is simply its spokesperson. Behavior, however, does not appear random. It follows patterns, and these patterns reveal hidden truths. Some people respond to stress with anger, others with silence, others with retreat. Some comply instantly when faced with authority, while others rebel instinctively. Relationship styles, whether secure, anxious, avoidant, or chaotic, repeat like fingerprints in the way people connect and withdraw. By observing patterns, you can predict reactions. By mapping behavior, you can forecast decisions. It is not about guessing, it is about decoding. Yet if patterns can be decoded, they can also be influenced. That is why cognitive biases hold such power. The human mind uses shortcuts to save time and energy, but those shortcuts often lead to predictable errors. Anchoring is one example. The first piece of information heard tends to shape all subsequent judgments. Recency is another. People remember the last message more vividly than the first. The halo effect ensures that one positive trait, like physical attractiveness, colors how every other quality is perceived. These biases are not bugs in the human system. They are features. They exist to help the brain make decisions quickly, but they also open the door to manipulation. When you understand the biases, you gain the ability to frame choices and timing in ways that nudge behavior toward the outcome you desire. Another hidden driver of behavior is emotional contagion. Human beings are wired with mirror neurons, brain cells that cause us to unconsciously mimic the emotional states of others. This is why a smile spreads in a crowd, why panic ripples through a room, why the calm confidence of a leader can stabilize an entire group. You catch emotions just as you catch a yawn, often without realizing it. Influence therefore begins with your own state. If you want to guide others, you must first master your emotional presence, becoming the thermostat that sets the tone rather than the thermometer that reacts to the room. At the core of it all lies the human need for identity. People act not according to cold logic, but according to who they believe they are. Identity governs values, beliefs, and behavior more strongly than reason ever could. If you can shape or reflect someone's identity, you can shape their choices. When a message aligns with identity, you are the kind of person who takes action, or people like us never quit. It bypasses logic entirely and strikes at the heart of decision-making. Logic may be debated, but identity is defended. To persuade is often to mirror identity. Layered into this is the brain's reward system. Human beings are addicted to dopamine, the neurotransmitter of anticipation. What drives most decisions is not the reward itself, but the expectation of it. Marketers exploit this through cliffhangers, curiosity gaps, and unpredictable reinforcement. Slot machines, social media notifications, and binge-worthy shows all work the same way. They keep the brain hooked on the possibility of the next reward, not the reward itself. Understanding this dopamine-driven cycle is to understand why people chase desires endlessly, even when satisfaction never truly arrives. Taken together, these forces, survival instincts, emotions, cultural programming, perception filters, subconscious patterns, biases, identity, and dopamine, form the blueprint of human behavior. Once you see this blueprint, people are no longer mysteries. Their choices, even the irrational ones, make sense in context. You no longer react blindly to what they do, you anticipate it. You read them like a map, and once you can read them, you can guide them. Understanding behavior is not merely about curiosity, it is about empowerment. When you know what drives people, you can protect yourself from manipulation, make wiser decisions in relationships, negotiate more effectively, and lead with integrity. Most importantly, you gain compassion. For beneath all the complexities, human beings are driven by the same fundamental needs: to survive, to belong, to be seen, and to find meaning. When you grasp that truth, every interaction changes. You no longer see just words and actions, you see the invisible strings of the human mind. And with that knowledge comes both power and responsibility.